Hello, this is the fourth element in the second module, Introduction to Academic Writing, Graduate Discourse, Elevating Academic Tone of Writing. The purpose of this video is to ensure that everyone knows and is aware of where to locate, secure, and download the fully licensed version of Microsoft Word. That is the standalone version of Word, so the non-browser based version of Word. You all receive it or can get it completely free of charge by virtue of being a student. Tuition dollars cover access to that. It's normally pretty pricey. A lot of times, many devices have Microsoft Word downloaded to it when it's purchased, but it's just a serial version or a temporary version, or sometimes even a subscription service that will charge you if you end up trying to use the service in all of its different tools that you can access. So we'll talk about, and I'll show you how to download that fully licensed version of Word and to make sure you're using the correct one. And then we'll also touch quickly on overall document formatting in APA, which is the overall basic conventions of how your document should look. These are all of the technicalities such as headers, page numbers, margins, font spacing, line spacing, paragraph spacing, references, etc. So we'll talk a little bit about both of those concepts. I'm going to try to make this video as quick as I can because there are a lot of other videos in this module, so I don't want to waste time on something that we could probably expedite. So the first thing I want to do is show you where you can find the full version of Microsoft Word. What you can do is pull up MyGate. I just type in wingate.edu/MyGate. A lot of our students will bookmark this page because it houses tons of student support services, academic support services, but it's also a centralized location to find a lot of the academic resources you're going to need, such as the bookstore, links to the library, the email, G Suite, and also Office 365, which I'm going to show you now. First thing you'll want to do is locate Office 365 and click on it. And then what you'll notice is that the browser will typically at this point prompt you to utilize your Wingate single sign-on. So this is your Wingate ID and your password to log in. I just recently logged in a few minutes ago, so it's taken me right to my Office 365 screen. This is where one could otherwise in many undergraduate classes probably use Teams, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all of these functions that are very brief versions, if you will, very light versions of the applications that you can use within the browser. The goal is to download the full version of Microsoft Word outside of the browser so that it shows up as its own application on your device. So despite whether you've got a Chromebook versus a Mac versus a PC, it doesn't matter. There's a download for all of that. Once you log into 365, what you'll want to do instead of using the resources over here is instead click on Install Office and then Office 365 apps. And what it's going to do is give you instructions and a prompt for how to download all of the Microsoft Office suite. You'll see something that looks similar to that. Every device will be different. You'll have different device prompts that come up requiring you to log into your device to prove that you're the administrator, etc. The idea is to click that link and download the full version of Microsoft Word. As you saw on my screen, it prompted a download here that you would click and follow the instructions. And you would follow that all the way through until on your device you have the full version of Microsoft Word, which will look something like this. So this is just a blank document here. You'll notice at the top of the screen, you'll have many different file tabs. So this is where you access all your different tools in Microsoft Word. Most people are familiar with this section here, your basic how to bold, how to italicize, all of your basic font control mechanisms, as well as maybe left, center, justify, right, flush, all of these different tools, bullet points, headings. We're going to use a lot of these different conventions within Microsoft Word. You're going to be programming your own documents here. You're going to build your documents from start to finish. You're not going to be relying on templates or anything like that. The idea is to become acquainted and accustomed with how to do this with all of your documents. In this class, you'll never use an online citation generator. You'll never use an online tool that's supposedly or in theory spits out the correct way to cite a source or how to format your document. Instead, you're going to become acquainted with APA, American Psychological Association Style Guide, and all of the parameters and rules in that style guide to dictate how your documents will look. So now that you know where to download that full version of Word, it will just make sure it looks something like this. The overall appearance of the application will vary from device to device, but you want to make sure you have File, Home, Insert, that you've got all of those tabs at the top, View, and that you've got some of these same functions that you see here in the task ribbons at the top of Microsoft Word. You'll need all of these different things eventually, not so much design and layout, but you'll definitely need these other items. And then the other important thing is this is going to be a prerequisite to us collaborating on your documents and your research together. When I review your documents, I leave edits and suggestions, corrections, etc. via comments. And you'll see a ton of comments here on the right-hand side of your document. And that's where you'll see my feedback, how you can resolve it on your own, and take note of any of the common writing nuances or errors that you make in your own unique writing style. I've pulled up on the screen a former submission of a critical analysis, or what would be the halfway point to a literature review for your reference. I think this is important for incoming writers to see, to provide some frame of reference for what the overall aesthetic of the document would look like when adhering to parameters of APA. And so when I say overall document formatting, I'm referring to what your overall document looks like, how the spacing is evened out, how your margins are separated across the different borders of your document, the specificity of the topic, page numbers, seriation or level headings, all of these different things. So what I want to do first is just walk you through and point out a few things that many people miss. Number one is that the cover page typically will have a page number on it somewhere. It's preferred that the cover page does not have a page number and that your page number begins on your first page of your content text. So you'll see a page 2 here and no page number on the cover page. You'll also notice the specificity of the research domain or interest here. This one reads University Academic Support Resource Discrepancies for Learning Disabled Athletes and Subsequent Effects of NCAA Division II Athletes. That should be on. And so you'll notice that that's a very specific focus. It's got very specific variables and chunks that can be broken and further researched and analyzed in different ways. And so one of the most common pitfalls of incoming graduate academic writers, and one of the challenges of bridging that gap between undergraduate writing and research style to graduate level caliber, is finding this level of focus. I want you to take note of that. You'll notice there's an organizational affiliation and a date. Normally you'll have a first and last name here that I have redacted because this is a former student's paper. And so that's what your cover page will look like. As you scroll through, you'll notice the different headers. The different headers are contingent upon how many subsections you have within a section. So it typically spans between L1 and L5, level 1 to level 5. But this is generally what a L1 first level heading would look like. So this is your main subsections of the work or the document you're drafting. Pay particular attention to how every bit of space on this document is even. Everything has been equaled out, including line spacing, the distance or the space between lines, but also paragraphs, as well as the space between your seriations, your headers, and your lines. Everything is even. Everything flows. You'll notice that your paragraphs are indented here. And then one other thing to point out, you'll notice this is a much longer title than what you see in your header. Oftentimes in documents of this caliber, the titles are so specific, so much so that it takes up several lines of space, and the goal in your header is to create a title that's just a shortened version thereof. So just some type of title that you can condense or shorten so that it doesn't span the entirety of the header. And as we keep scrolling down, what else do we notice? You will notice there are a plethora of what we call attributions or in-text citations, as most people know them. You'll notice that they happen at the beginning of sentences, but also at the end. One thing that most undergraduate students do, or one strategy that's often relied upon, is to always cite at the end of the sentence instead of adding some variance there and making an attribution or a citation at the beginning of the sentence. This is the case with this sentence here. I'm going to keep scrolling. You'll also notice the frequency of attributions and citations. So one of the minimum academic standards and a goal that I usually encourage students to adhere to is to cite or to attribute your sources every 2 to 3 sentences throughout your document, despite what section you're working on or where you're at. Every 2 to 3 sentences should be sufficient and a minimum expectation. I'm going to keep scrolling through here just so you can see some of the content. Take mental notes of what the document looks like. You'll also notice the space on the left, right, top, bottom margins are equal. And you'll also notice they're all 1 inch. Also take note that there is no seriation or subsection title that is separated from the content. So for instance, you won't see a title here with the paragraph content below. It's always going to be on the same page. And you're also going to see a wide variety and breadth of sources used. Finally, if you scroll to the end of the document, you will see conclusion, and then you'll also see a references section, which has all of your evenly spaced, highly specific, highly nuanced, and multifaceted reference citations that are purely contingent upon what type of source that is, whether it be a peer-reviewed scholarly journal, a dissertation, a government agency report, capstone project. No matter what that source is, it's highly researched and cross-referenced with the APA style guide so that these individual citations are formatted correctly. You'll notice that the first line of each reference citation is flush left to your margin, and every subsequent line is indented, ½ inch. This helps determine where one reference citation begins and where one ends. This is the overall aesthetic, overall document formatting. Very quickly, I'm going to walk you through how to program this on a new document so you know what you're working with, and you also know some of the common pitfalls that people miss when they're trying to do this with new documents they're building.